Something dangerous is happening right now, and almost nobody sees it. While people argue about prices and inflation, a far darker crisis is unfolding quietly behind the scenes. And by November 2025, some of the brands you grew up with may be completely gone. I've been tracking the signs, speaking with insiders, digging through financial reports, and what I found is worse than anything on the news. What's collapsing isn't just restaurants. It's the entire food infrastructure holding our daily lives together. Stay with me, because what happens to item number 7 will shock you, and it reveals exactly how close we are to a full-blown breakdown that could hit your city without warning. Number 1. Supply chain fragility and delivery disruption. When giant chains like Domino's begin collapsing, it's not just a corporate failure. It's a warning signal for every household. Domino's was once the king of fast, reliable delivery, but when their system cracked, entire regions lost access to one of their most dependable food pipelines. Their refusal to join third-party apps, the rise of DoorDash and Uber Eats, the overloaded fortress strategy, and even widespread app glitches pushed customers away and left hundreds of stores unprofitable. By early 2025, more than 800 Domino's locations worldwide had shut down, with over 400 in the US alone, wiping out delivery access in places like New England and the Pacific Northwest. That collapse shows you just how fragile modern supply chains really are. Everything today depends on speed, delivery apps, instant ordering, real-time tracking, but convenience is built on a thin digital thread. One algorithm change, one fuel spike, one labor shortage, and entire networks snap. When the company supplying food can't adapt fast enough, your city becomes vulnerable overnight. This is the hidden danger. Your meals, your groceries, even your basic supplies rely on a system that can fail just as fast as Domino's did. And when big corporations fall, smaller businesses fall even faster. That's why you need a personal buffer, a safety net that doesn't rely on apps, drivers, or distant warehouses. Build a simple 7-day no-delivery food supply. Shelf-stable items, ready-to-heat meals, canned protein, dry staples, so you're not trapped when the digital pipeline fails. Identify local alternatives too. A nearby bakery, a neighborhood store, a farmer's stall, any place that doesn't depend on a fragile nationwide chain. Because when delivery collapses, the unprepared run out of options fast. Act today. Build that 7-day backup and cut your dependence before the system fails for good. Number 2. Local economies and restaurant closures. When a major chain like TGI Fridays starts collapsing, the damage doesn't stop at the restaurant's doors. It spreads through the entire local economy. In 2025, Fridays shut down over 150 locations, wiping out jobs in Texas, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and dozens of other communities. These weren't minor closures. Key markets were gutted. Once those doors closed, the ripple effect hit hard. Laid off workers, empty retail plazas, reduced foot traffic, and weakened nearby businesses that depended on evening crowds. A single restaurant disappearing can slow an entire neighborhood. But when dozens vanish at once, it signals something deeper. An economy struggling to stay alive. Fridays didn't die because people stopped eating. It died because the system holding it up buckled. Rising operational costs, legal battles with franchisees, failed attempts at modernization, and an inability to adapt to digital ordering left the brand bleeding. And here's the truth you must understand. If multi-million-dollar corporations with national reach can't survive inflation, labor spikes, and supply disruptions, smaller local spots don't stand a chance. When chains fall, it's a preview of what's coming for local mom-and-pop stores, and for your own household budget. This is why preparing isn't panic, it's protection. When restaurants shut down, food access shrinks, prices rise, and store shelves thin out as competition decreases. Your defense is local resilience. Start learning who feeds your community outside the big brands. Local farmers, family-owned grocers, small but reliable food hubs. Build relationships now, while you still can. Today, introduce yourself to one local food supplier, because in a collapsing economy, community ties are worth more than convenience. Number 3. Product relevance. When a legacy brand like Baskin-Robbins starts melting under pressure, it's not just about ice cream. It's a lesson in how fast consumer systems shift and how quickly unprepared households get left behind. Baskin-Robbins was once untouchable, built on its famous 31 flavors, but by 2025, it had lost its grip on the market. Sales dropped 12% in a single year, over 60 stores quietly shut down, and younger consumers flocked to trendier, more adaptable brands. Why? Because Baskin-Robbins failed to innovate. While competitors rolled out plant-based options, gourmet ingredients, and Instagram-ready flavors, Baskin-Robbins stayed frozen in time. And when a product no longer fits the moment, the market erases it. Fast. This is the same danger families face during an economic crisis. If you rely on the same fixed food habits, the same narrow brands, or the same imported items, you'll get blindsided the moment prices spike or supplies vanish. Markets change quicker than people think. Shortages, inflation, and shifting consumer demands can gut entire categories overnight. When Baskin-Robbins couldn't adapt, its relevance evaporated. When households don't adapt, their stability does too. Your prep strategy must evolve with the world around you. Don't depend on one brand, one store, or one type of food. Learn to make comfort staples at home. Explore shelf-stable alternatives. Stock ingredients that let you recreate the foods your family loves even during shortages. Canned fruits, powdered mixes, long-lasting flavorings, dried milk. Because when supply chains fail, it's comfort foods that keep morale high. This week, choose one store-bought favorite and learn to make it from scratch. Adaptability is your best weapon in a collapsing economy. Number 4. Business models that depend on the home. The downfall of Papa Murphy's is one of the clearest warning signs of how quickly a business and a household can collapse when it relies on a single habit or system. Papa Murphy's built its entire empire on one idea. You take the pizza home and bake it yourself. For years, it worked. Families loved the convenience. But when frozen pizza brands upgraded, when delivery apps exploded, and when people demanded hot food fast, the entire take-and-bake model began to crumble. By 2025, sales had fallen 9%, over 70 stores shut down across the Midwest and South, and entire states like Kentucky and Mississippi lost every location. The brand didn't just lose customers, it lost purpose. This is the same trap many households fall into, depending on one routine, one system, or one source of food security. Maybe it's frozen meals, maybe it's fast food, maybe it's weekly grocery runs with no backup plan. But the moment costs rise, shelves thin, or supply chains shift, that single habit becomes a liability, just like Papa Murphy's business model. Economic crises punish rigidity. They crush systems that can't adapt. Your home cannot function like a one-strategy business. You need layers of food security, frozen goods, dry staples, canned proteins, ingredients you can cook from scratch, and meals you can prepare without electricity if needed. Having variety doesn't make you paranoid, it makes you resilient. Build a pantry with options that work in every scenario. Power on, power off, money tight, stores closed, delivery unavailable. When life changes overnight, as it always does in economic downturns, you'll be ready, not scrambling. Today, buy or set aside one essential base ingredient, rice, flour, beans, oats, and start building a flexible, crisis-proof pantry. Number 5. Service standards, reputation, and collapse. The fall of Steak 'n Shake shows how quickly a business can die when service quality collapses, and how the same thing can happen inside a household during crisis. Once boasting more than 600 locations, Steak 'n Shake slid into chaos after years of slow service, long wait times, inconsistent food, and constant customer complaints. By 2025, the chain had lost over half its entire footprint, shutting down stores in Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, and dozens of other markets. Franchisees walked away, lawsuits erupted, and customers stopped trusting the brand. What killed Steak 'n Shake wasn't just money. It was the failure to maintain standards when pressure increased. And here's the hard truth. The same thing happens to families in an economic downturn. When stress rises, when systems break, when resources thin out, your household can either maintain structure or collapse internally. Poor planning, inconsistent routines, and low-skill environments fall apart just like failing businesses. If you don't have the right habits, skills, or backups in place, crisis exposes every weakness. Your goal is to build self-reliance, not dependency. Learn the simple, essential skills that keep a home stable during hard times: cooking from scraps, repairing small items, budgeting tightly, managing fuel and supplies wisely, keeping routines even when stress spikes. These are the service standards of your household, the practices that keep everything running even when the world outside is crumbling. Businesses that maintain quality survive recessions. Families that maintain structure survive anything. The faster you build these core habits, the stronger your resilience becomes, and the less you'll depend on unreliable systems. Today, teach one simple homemade meal or survival skill to someone in your home. Strong families survive crises, unprepared ones don't. Number 6. Brand confusion and failed repositioning. The collapse of Hardee's is a lesson in what happens when a brand loses its identity, and how that same confusion can destroy a household's preparedness during a crisis. Hardee's once thrived on bold marketing and hearty meals, but over time its image became blurred and outdated. It struggled to connect with younger consumers, leaned on stale advertising, and failed to adapt to shifting tastes. Combine that with rising costs, lawsuits, and franchise bankruptcies like Summit Restaurant Holdings, and Hardee's was forced to close over 100 locations, shrinking from nearly 3,000 stores in its golden years to under 1,600 today. A brand that doesn't know what it is cannot survive. Families fall into the same trap during an economic downturn. Without a clear plan, without a clear identity, your household starts reacting instead of preparing. One month you stock up, the next month you don't. One week you budget, the next you panic buy. Survival becomes guesswork, and guesswork fails when pressure rises. Crisis punishes confusion. It rewards clarity, focus, and systems. Your preparedness plan needs a clear brand identity. What are your core priorities? What items must always be stocked? What survival skills do you depend on? What emergencies are you preparing for? If you don't define these now, you'll freeze when disaster hits. Just like Hardee's froze in a shifting market, clarity creates strength. When you know your goals, food security, financial stability, emergency readiness, every action becomes purposeful. Every purchase makes sense. Every habit builds resilience. Without clarity, you'll collapse under pressure, just like the chains that couldn't adapt. Start your personal crisis identity today. Write down your top 3 survival priorities and build your preparedness around them. Clarity now means stability later. Number 7, cultural shifts and market rejection. The downfall of Hooters is a powerful example of what happens when a brand refuses to evolve with cultural change. Once a booming chain with over 430 locations, Hooters struggled to attract younger generations who demanded inclusivity, modern dining experiences, and fresher branding. By 2025, same-store sales had dropped 10%. Its footprint shrank to under 300 restaurants, and entire states like Maine and Vermont lost every location. Consumers moved on, and Hooters didn't, so the market rejected it. This is exactly what happens to households that refuse to adapt during economic decline. The world changes quickly. Prices rise, habits shift, supply chains tighten, opportunities disappear, and what worked 5 years ago may not work today. If you cling to old routines, shopping patterns, spending habits, food choices, you'll get blindsided. Crisis doesn't reward nostalgia. It rewards adaptability. Your preparedness plan must evolve as fast as the world does. If certain foods are getting expensive, pivot to cheaper, long-lasting alternatives. If energy bills rise, learn low-power cooking methods. If your area becomes unsafe, adjust your routes, schedules, and supply strategies. Hooters fell because it underestimated how much the world had changed. You cannot make the same mistake in your own home. Cultural and economic shifts always hit the unaware the hardest. But those who adjust early, those who read the signs, accept reality, and modify their strategy, survive with far less damage. Today, update one part of your preparedness plan to match the world you live in now. Adapt before circumstances force you to. Number 8. Urban vulnerability versus suburban resilience. The troubles facing Chick-fil-A reveal a deeper truth about economic fragility in America. Urban areas collapse faster, harder, and with far fewer safety nets. Chick-fil-A is one of the strongest, most profitable chains in the country. Yet even they couldn't withstand the pressure of rising rent, labor costs, crime spikes, and cultural backlash in big cities. By 2025, they were forced to close multiple high-profile locations in New York, San Francisco, and Chicago, including stores in Manhattan's financial district. When a powerhouse like Chick-fil-A can't survive the urban economic squeeze, what chance do smaller businesses, or unprepared families, have? But here's the twist. While cities suffered closures, suburban and rural areas saw expansion. Chick-fil-A is doubling down on regions with lower crime, lower rent, and stronger customer loyalty. This split is a map of where economic collapse hits hardest, and where resilience still exists. If you live in or near a major city, you must understand the risks. Faster food shortages, quicker store closures, higher prices, fewer stable jobs, and increased danger during disruptions. Urban grocery stores restock less, sell out faster, and struggle when supply chains tighten. Suburban areas, meanwhile, often retain more stable access to food, fuel, and community support. This chapter is your wake-up call. Geography matters in crisis. If you're in a vulnerable zip code, plan accordingly. Map out alternative stores within a wider radius. Identify supply points outside the city. Learn the back roads, the smaller markets, and the suburban stores that stay stocked longer during shortages. Your survival should never depend on one neighborhood, one store, or one fragile urban system. Right now, list 3 alternate food sources within 20 miles of your home, because in a crisis, distance becomes your lifeline. Number 9. Overexpansion and cannibalization. The collapse of fast-growing chains like Raising Cane's and Moe's Southwest Grill shows what happens when growth becomes a liability instead of a strength. These brands exploded too fast, flooding markets with new locations and assuming demand would keep up forever. But by 2024 to 2025, Raising Cane's saw a 9% sales drop, customer satisfaction nosedived, and over 120 locations were forced to close, many in high-crime, oversaturated areas. Moe's did even worse. Same-store sales fell 18%, franchisees went bankrupt, and entire states like Illinois lost every single Moe's location. Their boom became their downfall. This is the same danger families face when they overexpand their lifestyle. Too many bills, too many subscriptions, too many financial commitments, too many unnecessary purchases, and when the economy tightens, everything collapses at once. Overexpansion is the hidden destroyer of households. Expanding faster than your income, faster than your preparedness, or faster than your stability leaves you vulnerable to every shock. Job loss, inflation, medical bills, supply disruptions. In business, cannibalization happens when too many stores in one area steal from each other. In your home, cannibalization happens when too many expenses steal from your savings, your emergency fund, your food budget, and your peace of mind. The result? Stress, instability, and crisis hitting harder than it should. Preparedness means keeping your life lean, intentional, and flexible. Cut the waste. Reduce recurring expenses. Build slowly and strategically, not impulsively. Strength comes from controlled growth, not chaotic expansion. Start today. List 3 unnecessary expenses you can cut immediately. Every dollar freed is a dollar that strengthens your resilience. Number 10. regional market risks, and failed expansion. The collapse of Bojangles on the West Coast is one of the clearest warnings of how dangerous it is to assume that what works in one region will work everywhere. Bojangles tried to break into California and other Western markets with confidence, but reality hit hard. Nearly 30% of their new West Coast locations were already scheduled to close by 2025. Their brand didn't translate, their costs skyrocketed, and the company lost millions trying to force success in a region that wasn't built for them. Entire cities like Jacksonville, Florida, also lost every Bojangles location, proving that regional failure isn't limited to one coast. It's a nationwide risk. Why does this matter to you? Because households fall into the same trap when they rely on strategies, foods, or habits that only work under normal conditions. Regional differences matter. Supply chains vary. Weather patterns shift. Crime rates change. Some regions face drought. Others face power outages. Some have strong distribution hubs. Others run out of stock in a single day. If your preparedness plan isn't built for your region, you're exposed. A family in Texas needs heat-resistant storage, backup water, and blackout strategies. A family in the Northeast needs winter fuel, shelf-stable soups, and snowstorm rations. A family in the West must prepare for wildfires, power cuts, and long-distance supply chains. A one-size-fits-all prep plan fails just as fast as Bojangles did in California. Understanding your regional vulnerabilities is one of the strongest forms of crisis-proofing your life. Study your weather history, your local supply routes, your climate, and the weaknesses of your area. Preparedness isn't universal. It's local. Today, adjust one part of your stockpile for the realities of your region, because survival depends on where you stand. Number 11, franchisee fragility and legal fallout. When chains like Firehouse Subs, Subway, and Arby's start collapsing, the headlines usually focus on corporate failures. But the real damage hits the franchisees, the small operators, and the communities that depend on them. Firehouse Subs once had strong momentum, yet by late 2024, it was drowning in debt. 18 locations in Minnesota closed at once. Franchisees owed millions, and lawsuits exploded as operators accused the company of abandoning them. Subway cut over 1,000 stores in a single year, with another 700 projected closures by 2025. Arby's faced an 11.5% sales drop, with nearly 200 stores shutting down and operators filing bankruptcy. These aren't small failures. They're signals that the system holding America's food infrastructure together is cracking. And this is the part most people miss. When franchisees collapse, communities lose far more than a sandwich shop. They lose local jobs, tax revenue, supply demand, and stability. Dozens of small business owners, regular families, not giant corporations, get wiped out. The more franchise failures stack up, the more fragile your local economy becomes. This is exactly why your personal resilience must not rely on fragile systems, fragile employers, or fragile supply chains. If small business owners with decades of experience can be crushed by rising costs, inflation, and failing corporate support, then everyday families must build buffers even faster. Strength doesn't come from hoping the system stays stable. It comes from preparing for when it doesn't. Support local businesses. Build real community connections. Strengthen the small networks that can survive when corporate structures fail. And if you run a business yourself, create contingency plans, emergency funds, and backup suppliers before crisis forces your hand. Reach out to one local business owner this week. Connection today becomes support tomorrow when systems start collapsing. Number 12. Digital dependence and tech failures. One of the most overlooked threats exposed by the fast food collapse is our total dependence on digital systems, and how quickly everything falls apart when the tech breaks. Chains like Domino's, Subway, and KFC didn't just suffer from bad management and rising costs, they suffered from digital failure. Domino's once had the gold standard app for online ordering, but by 2024 it was plagued with glitches, payment errors, and slowdowns that drove customers away. Subway poured millions into its Eat Fresh refresh, yet its digital ordering saw constant inconsistencies and customer complaints. KFC's online systems lagged far behind competitors, causing lost orders, slow delivery, and frustrated customers. In an era where convenience rules, failing tech is fatal. But here's the bigger truth. Your home is just as vulnerable. Most families today depend on digital infrastructure for everything: banking, groceries, communication, navigation, even cooking instructions. When the apps collapse, when the grid fails, when the network goes down, the unprepared are left helpless. The same digital fragility that pushed major chains into crisis can send households into panic during a real emergency. Preparedness means building analog resilience, systems that work when the tech doesn't. Printed recipes, offline maps, cash on hand-operated tools, copies of important documents, a list of emergency contacts written on paper, not trapped inside a dead phone, and most importantly, a food supply you can access without relying on delivery drivers or digital payment systems. Technology is a tool, not a life raft. The corporations forgot that and paid the price. You cannot afford to make the same mistake. A single outage can leave thousands stranded. A single hack can freeze your accounts. A single storm can knock out your entire support system. Today, create a one-page offline readiness sheet, your family's lifeline when the digital world goes dark. Number 14. Community resilience and mutual aid. The collapse of so many major chains, from Bojangles to Arby's to Firehouse Subs, left more than empty buildings behind. It left entire communities weakened, with thousands of workers unemployed, local economies drained, and families suddenly without stable food options. When restaurants disappear, the surrounding ecosystem suffers. Late-night workers lose safe eating spots. Neighborhoods lose foot traffic. Nearby stores lose customers, and whole areas begin to feel abandoned. This is the quiet part of economic collapse, the part most people don't see until it's already too late. But here's the good news. Communities that stay connected withstand crisis far better than those that stay isolated. When big systems fall, people become the real safety net. Throughout history, neighborhoods survived recessions, wars, shortages, and disasters not because they had money, but because they had each other. Shared food, shared tools, shared skills, shared labor. Mutual aid isn't charity, it's survival. Right now, your community could lose its own local support pillars without warning. Grocery stores, pharmacies, restaurants, gas stations. When those doors close, the only thing that keeps families afloat is the strength of the connections they've already built. This is why you must start forming relationships before crisis hits. Meet your neighbors, trade skills, build a local contact list, create a shared resource spreadsheet. Start or join a small preparedness group. Even 2 or 3 people working together can prevent shortages, coordinate supplies, split bulk purchases, and support each other in emergencies. You don't need a huge network, you just need a reliable one. Schedule a 60-minute meetup with at least one neighbor this month, because in crisis, community becomes your greatest survival asset. Number 15. Your 90-day action plan. The collapse of America's biggest fast food chains isn't just a story about business failures. It's a blueprint for what happens when systems break down faster than people can adapt. Every chapter in this countdown has shown you the same pattern: overspending, digital dependence, fragile supply chains, labor shortages, rising prices, regional risks, and total reliance on unstable corporate structures. If billion-dollar companies can crumble under these pressures, families must prepare even faster. You cannot wait for the economy to get better. You need a plan that puts you in control, starting today. Here's your simple but powerful 90-day preparedness plan, built from the lessons of every collapse we examined. Days 130. Build your 14-day food and water supply. Focus on shelf-stable essentials: rice, beans, oats, pasta, canned meats, canned vegetables, soups, peanut butter, oil, and electrolyte mixes. Create an offline readiness sheet. Print key documents and map 3 alternate food sources outside your immediate area. Days 31 to 60. Develop your core survival skills. Basic cooking without electricity, first aid fundamentals, water filtration, and household repairs. Begin cutting unnecessary expenses and redirecting that money toward your emergency fund and stockpile. Strengthen local connections. At least 2 neighbors, 1 local business owner, and 1 community resource. Days 61-90. Start deep resilience building. Store long-term foods, create a backup power plan, diversify income streams, rotate your pantry, and conduct a household crisis drill. Tighten your budget. Finalize your regional preparedness adjustments and complete a written family emergency plan. This plan isn't complicated, but it is life-changing. Start day 1 today. The world won't wait, and your future depends on what you do now, not later. The collapse of these major chains isn't just headlines, it's a warning. When billion-dollar companies fall this fast, it means the systems you rely on every day are far more fragile than they appear. But you're not powerless. Preparation gives you control. Every small action you take, every meal stored, every skill learned, every plan written, builds real security for you and your family. Hope is not a strategy. Action is. Start today, stay consistent, and protect your future before the next wave of collapse hits.